Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you all are doing well. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, wa'ala alihi wصحبه ومن wala. So welcome to night 2 of our reflections. Let's hope this doesn't go for too long, inshallah ta'ala, but at least in the meantime, as I said, every night I'm just going to come on and give you guys a small reflection. It's meant to be informal and just something to think about in these moments as we are praying to Allah to relieve us of this coronavirus as soon as possible and to get us back into our masajid, into His masajid, His houses. So I wanted to share with you all a reminder today, and I was thinking about this. It's Friday, and we have the recitation of Surah Al-Kahf, the recitation of Surah Al-Kahf, which talks about the young men that went to the cave to escape everything that was happening around them, to escape the fitan, the trials and the tribulations. And they took retreat in this cave. And ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put them to sleep for a long duration of time. And Allah tells us the story of how these young men woke up. And of course, if you search the history of the sleepers, you'll find a lot about them. And it's very interesting to me that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that Surah Al-Kahf, which is a sunnah to read on Fridays in particular, is a protection from ad-Dajjal. The first 10 verses or the last 10 verses is a protection particularly from al-Masih ad-Dajjal, from the Antichrist. And it's particularly a surah that we can go to, a chapter that we can go to when we're trying to find clarity in the midst of confusion. And the last days are the most confusing of days, as you have al-Masih ad-Dajjal. And no, he's not exactly like the one on Netflix, all right, on that. I didn't watch it, by the way. But al-Masih ad-Dajjal, who obviously is able to delude many people and to get many people to follow in his tracks and to follow his fitna. And the connection is made through many different ways. One of them is that these men ultimately retreated. These young people, إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. The only thing we know about them is that they're young people. These young people retreated to that cave to escape the chaos on the outside. And before the Day of Judgment, as we get to those major signs, particularly when al-Masih ad-Dajjal comes out, the instruction from the Prophet ﷺ is to hide. And I know the word quarantine is going to be used over and over and over again, but this is a form of that, right? To get away from him. Wherever he is, right? So to not go and challenge him, but instead to flee with your religion, even if you have to go to the mountains, away from everybody else and away from everything else, because the most precious commodity that you have is your religion, right? Is your faith. And so if you have to get away from that, then get away from that. And there's a connection, a direct connection then made between us and Ashab al-Kahf, the people of the cave, who escaped the fitna of their times, the trials and tribulation of their times, fleeing with their religion into that cave, obviously not knowing that Allah would put them to sleep for a very long time. Fast forward to the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also going to a cave to find clarity. He's going to Ghar Hira. And Aisha radiallahu anha describes the way that the revelation started with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and she says that first he was having these true dreams. He'd see something sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then the next day the Prophet ﷺ would encounter what he saw in his dream. And that took place for 6 months. And then Allah bestowed the love of seclusion upon the Prophet ﷺ. So he was not forced into seclusion. The Prophet ﷺ did not find himself in some form of involuntary period of deep self-reflection because he was put somewhere. The Prophet ﷺ, at the peak of his career in terms of being a merchant, with all of the love that he had from society, with everything successful, all measures of success being met in his life, found a love of seclusion that caused him to go to this cave, Ghar Hira, where he would sit for days and then weeks and even an entire month. And the key here is that Aisha radiallahu anha says that he would find no desire to leave that cave. So he would find great clarity. It wasn't a time of punishment for him, but it was a time where he was able to cut all of the noise of the world out and to just focus, right? To focus, وَيَتَحَنَّث, and he would worship in an Abrahamic way, okay? Meaning he would worship one God and he would focus on the worship of that one God, not knowing the specifics of what he was going to be called to, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So you have the example which we read about today of the people of the cave, and we're called to read every single week, and then particularly to protect ourselves from the great times of fitna, the tribulation of ad-Dajjal. And these were people that fled into seclusion to get away from the noise of this world and to get away from the fitan of this world. And then us also being told that there would come a time where we'd have to make a choice. And, if that time came, may Allah protect us all and protect us from all of the fitan, the tribulations, that you choose your religion, you go into seclusion. If you have to go to the mountains and tend to sheep, and all you have is your faith, then that's worth it. And then you find the Prophet ﷺ, what preceded him, his mission, his bi'tha, his being sent forth as a messenger and a prophet, was that love of seclusion, was that taking to that cave and finding great clarity in those moments. What does this mean for us? Right now, we're being forced into quarantine, we're being forced into some form of seclusion, some period of seclusion. And obviously we have tools at our disposal now that allow us to not really be fully secluded, right? We could turn on a camera, we could get on social media, we could text, we could remain connected with the world, even though it would be in a digital sense, but we could remain connected in some ways. However, what we also have is a unique opportunity of solitude, a unique opportunity of khalwa with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seclusion with Allah, solitude where you can find great clarity, moments where you can clear your mind, moments where you can shed off all of the dust of dunya, all of the dust of worldly things that you acquire as you walk through this world, all of the the corrupting influences that you naturally come into contact with all the time. And subhanallah, this is a time where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Al-mar'u ala dini khalili," that a person is on the way of their friends. He also mentioned, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the difference between a good friend and a bad friend, right? A good friend is like someone who sells perfume. Even if you don't take their inventory, they rub off on you and you smell good. A bad friend is like someone who's a blacksmith, right? So even if you don't take from their product, the smoke of it still comes onto you. So, a more practical example for our times is someone that smokes cigarettes, a friend of yours that smokes, and you smell like that smoke, even if you yourself did not smoke. So there are influences around us all the time. But you learn the true nature of yourself when you're alone, and you have an opportunity for clarity. And what you find is that when you look at the lives of the Salaf, when you look at the lives of the pious predecessors, they all had this daily or weekly routine where they'd completely seclude themselves. And so you'll find, for example, a great scholar like Ibrahim ibn Adham, rahimahullah, who was well known for his wisdom. How did he find all that wisdom? How did he have such clarity in life? Because there was an hour of the day that you could not find Ibrahim ibn Adham. Right? That was the reputation that he had. The great judge Shuraih al-Qadi, especially, so think about someone that's especially public, that deals with the public on an involved or at an involved level on a continuous basis. And you take from the example of a man like Shuraih al-Qadi, a great judge in Islamic history. And on the day of Friday, he was known to go to this place. He had this home that he would go to on the day of Friday, and no one could talk to him, right? So he'd go to Jum'ah, but no one could interact with him on that day. Friday was his day to reflect, to gain clarity, to recharge, and to get to where he needed to be, so that he could continue to fulfill the obligations of the ummah in the brilliant way that he was able to fulfill those obligations. So right now, take this as an opportunity to do well with your cave. SubhanAllah, I was watching, I was sharing with a close friend that I'd watched that movie. Some of you might remember the movie Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, and watched it with the kids to gain some perspective, obviously, on people that are struggling right now, and how struggles can be compounded in the system that we live in right now. And there's that scene where he and his son, because he's homeless at night, he has nowhere to go, and they go to a bathroom, and they imagine that it's a cave, and they lock that public bathroom and he hopes to not be caught by the cops as he's in the cave, right? And subhanAllah, like I'm thinking about it more and more, especially with Surah Al-Kahf as we're reading it, the blessing of being able to sit at home, turn everything off, and just gain some peace of mind. Now I know that, you know, if you've got kids, you're learning how to homeschool. You know, spouses might drive each other nuts right now. There's so many different things that can happen right now, but you still have the ability, inshallah, hopefully now more than before, to be able to cut everything off, shut everything off, and gain clarity, renew intention, count your blessings, and recharge. So yes, inshallah, at some point this is all going to end and we're all going to go back to our lives, whatever that looks like, whenever that looks like, if Allah gives us life. But, you know, treasure the moments that you have right now in your cave and find clarity. And by the way, you know, just something, and I'll mention this in conclusion, the Prophet ﷺ, he used to go back to Hira at times. So he actually went to Hira after Ta'if, the most difficult moments of his life. The Prophet ﷺ retreated back to that cave. And so for us, where we don't maybe have the physical cave, find your quiet spot. Today, Sheikh Muhammad Faqih, beloved friend, dear brother Sheikh Muhammad Faqih, had shared a picture of how he made like a little musalla in his home. And I know that many people, you know, already probably have sort of a little musalla in their home, like a place to pray in their home, a corner that they reflect in. Now's a good time to find that place if you don't already have it, or to establish yourself within that place if you already have it, and to really, really, you know, intentionally allot a certain amount of time every single day, inshallah ta'ala, to that corner, to that cave, so that you can refresh and regain that clarity. So that's the reflection I had for you today. Surah Al-Kahf, again, the connection of reading about the sleepers, the cave of the 7 sleepers. It's always great when I go to Jordan. My in-laws live right next to that cave. They don't live in a cave, but they live right next to that cave. So you get a chance to go to that cave. And of course, it's disputed whether that's the actual one, but subhanAllah, it's just a really beautiful site. One of the sites that's believed to be potentially where Ashab al-Kahf were. And that's our connection to them. And that's a lesson that we learn every single Jum'ah, and especially as we near the end of times, this idea of a Dajjal coming out. And we would, if we had to take to a cave, if we had to go to the mountains to flee with our faith, then we would do so. And the best way to renew our faith and to gain clarity is to find moments of solitude and to refresh ourselves, inshallah ta'ala, when we have those moments. So as much as everyone is going crazy in quarantine, turn your quarantine into a cave, inshallah ta'ala, where, you know, turn it into your Hira, inshallah ta'ala, where you can gain some perspective and some clarity in these difficult times. So jazakumullahu khairan. Could you please wait a minute in the start? Yes, maybe I will wait a minute in the start, inshallah ta'ala. So I'll try to wait a little bit longer to give you guys a chance to catch up. In the meantime, again, you know, look out every single night, inshallah ta'ala, at this time for just a short reminder. Go to yaqeeninstitute.org, and at Yaqeen Institute you'll find a page which has some of the content that we're going to be putting out, inshallah ta'ala, that's supposed to that hopefully will be beneficial to you in these times. And let us know what we could do better, inshallah ta'ala. Let me know if there's something that you would that you'd like me to touch upon. I'll make sure that I go through the comments to see what it is, inshallah ta'ala, that you'd like me to touch upon in the coming nights. I hope I don't have to be doing this for several months, because I might run out of content. I might run out of things to reflect on. So there might be some nights where I just decide to come on and just hang out. So jazakumullahu khairan to you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.